Hi, I'm Ben. I'm from A-Bands. I'm going to show you guys how to make an A-band today. It's going to be two colors, blue with a white stripe. I'm going to show you here on the table basically all the tools you're going to need to make one. So if you come over here, this is very simple and easy and stuff that you probably just have laying around, which is nice, nothing too complicated. So first of all, just the pliers is nice to be able to sometimes get the band in tight spaces. It also works out towards the end when you start running low on cord. Gives you something to grab a hold on to make sure the knot is tight. I use a hanger, and you'll see where I kind of use that to just kind of help hold the bracelet so that it's in such a spot that you can work in front of you. Quick little piece that I use to hold a buckle, and we'll actually send these a couple to you as well, so that way you won't even have to worry about how to make them, but I'll show you how we use that to hold the band as well. Our two colors that we're going to use, so again we're going to use blue with a white stripe, so we just need a small section of white for that and a larger section of blue, and we'll be sending that to you pre-cut as well. I do right now have a tape which we use for measuring. At this point we're still measuring each one individually, but we'd like to find a way that we can make that a little simpler as well, but for now I'll show you using the tape. And then I've got a couple buckles here, so again we'll show you how to tie all that together. So get started, we're going to make one, so I need one white and I need one section of the blue here. This is two blues. Alright, so the first step is basically get the long section of cord you want, and you want to get the two ends together. By getting the two ends together, that helps you find the very center of the cord, which is what we're looking for. So we put the two together, hold your finger on it just to kind of keep them together so you know as you push down towards the end, if you keep your fingers on it nice and taut, when you get to the end a little loop, that's going to be right perfect center, and that's what we're looking for, is the exact center of the cord. So we're going to grab the center, we're going to hold on to it. We're going to grab one of the buckles. From this point on, I like to refer to this as kind of the male buckle and the female buckle. So that way you'll kind of know as we talk about the two pieces. So we're going to start with just the male buckle. I'll refer to this as the top. The top has the female buckle. The top has more of a rounded edge to it. There's also a little indent square in there versus the other side. So we always want to start from the top of the buckle. So we're going to grab our center of the cord and we're going to run it through the top of the buckle here. So this is where if you've got larger hands, larger fingers, some of the cord is a little thicker diameter than others. So sometimes it's hard to get that through there. If that's the case, this is where it's sometimes nice to just have something you can just gently push it through, just enough to get a little loop there. Other times you might just be able to get it through without any problem. So once we've pushed that through, we've got just basically a little loop that comes through there. Again, we came in through the top of the buckle down, and now we have that loop. We're just going to run these two sections through that loop one time, pull it all the way through, and as we pull it tight, we have our connection for the buckle. So this is the first start for getting the main piece on. We're also going to throw our stripe in now, because we like to get that started at the very beginning. So before you get that too tight, you run the white right through the center of those two pieces there. And again, depending on the cord or the ability to get your fingers in there, sometimes it goes through easy. Otherwise, if you need that needle nose pliers, sometimes that'll help. So we're going to basically get that through. We've got about 1 inch that's sticking out from there. So once we do that, we can really snug up the blue. So by grabbing the two blue lines and kind of twisting it, it'll snug it up and get it really nice and tight against there without pulling the white out, which is kind of what we want. So our perfect start should look like that. You should have 3 stripes. You'll have white in the middle, blue on both sides, with the loop going around the outside of it. About 1 inch of tail on the end, and then the rest of it will just hang down until we're ready to connect the other buckle. So this is where we get ready to kind of start connecting it all together. This is where I grab the hanger, and I'll grab the male buckle as well as the tape so we can start to measure it. So before we can connect it, this is the piece that we're going to send to you. And all this basically is just a piece of cord that's just tied in a knot, and it's got the female buckle on the end of it. And if you take this and wrap it around something in front of you, or a door handle, or whatever you have in front of you, same thing, you just put it around, you've got the loop here, you put that buckle through the loop, and you just pull it tight. And then this allows you a connection point to attach your bracelet to. So we'll let that hang. grab our hanger. And at this point, I actually just kind of sit on the hanger, kind of hold it in place. And this allows me to have a workspace right in front of me, which is nice and easy and comfortable to work in. So I'm going to grab the buckle there, the female end that we just got all ready, and I'm going to put that right through here so it's kind of holding that buckle for me. Then I'm just going to grab the two blue pieces, and again holding my finger on them because I don't want them to get crisscrossed in any way. I want to make sure they stay right next to each other the whole time. I'm going to just slowly pull it up. When I get to the end, both these ends should be really close to being on center. So off a little bit, that's not a problem. I take now the male buckle and I run both of these ends right through the top of it. In the same order again. You don't want them to get twisted so that it's nice and smooth. Once you get those through, just pull it. You'll start to get some tension here on your coat hanger, which is good. We can now connect it here, and that just basically allows us a spot where we can have a workspace in front of us. So we're almost ready here. Now we just have to connect this other white stripe, same as we did on the other side, right through the center of the two. And once we get that through there, we're going to also look for about an inch or so on the other side. So you'll have a little slack in here, and that's okay. It makes it easier to tie it when you've got a little bit of slack. So now is the point where I want to measure. It's important that when we measure the buckles, we actually want to measure starting from the point right here. We don't want to measure the tip here, and we don't want to measure this part of the buckle at all. We just want to measure from right here, this edge. So I'll put that right there. From now on, every time you see it, I'll be putting it right there. So reconnect it. I'm going to put the tape right there against that piece. I'm going to go all the way down to the end of my buckle. I'm about 8.5 inches right here, which is a kind of about a normal average medium to large size, so we'll kind of keep with that for now. If I want it a little bit longer, I basically just push this chair, or I make a little extra slack here, so now I'm probably about a 9. I'll measure again, so I'm a little over 9. If you need, you pull a little slack back in. So this is probably one of the more difficult spots, is just getting the measuring right. And as we start having sizes, it becomes pretty important. But for now, this is kind of the best way we have. So we're ready to start weaving now at any time. So I've got a little bit of slack back here with the white. I only really want about that much, so I'm going to pull that in a little bit, just because I don't want the white to run all the way down the full length of the band. So I'm going to kind of hold that in place there. I'm going to get the rest of that out of the way. And here I have my two ends. So this is where we start weaving. So I basically am going to make kind of an S with one side. So if you kind of see, I'm coming from here and I'm coming around, it's kind of shaped like an S. And that's what we're going to keep doing back and forth, as an S. Once we have that S with the other side, this is going to go over the top of this side. So for now I'll do it real slow. Go over the top, pull it all the way through, and then it's going to go around behind the band and out the front of this side. So that was done pretty slow, but you kind of get the idea. As we pull it, it'll kind of come together. So I'm going to take a minute and just show you one of the things we want is we want to tuck this white piece in. So we want to make sure it's under that cord there as we start to tighten it for the first time. So as we start to tighten it, here's where you just got to take a little bit of time to make sure everything looks good. If you pull it really tight, this loop right here will actually kind of end up behind there. It just naturally wants to go to the back of the band. We actually kind of want it up at the front of the band. So I'm going to pull it up with this side so that the loop is right here in front of me, because that's going to be the first loop that you're going to see on a bracelet, on a band. So that's the first tie right there. So we're going to do two of them just like that, and then we're going to start to incorporate this white into it. So now we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to create the S, but we're going to go backwards the same side, or the same piece of cord, but we're going to go back this way. So now it's actually kind of a backwards S. But again, you'll get kind of the idea where it's a loop here and a loop here. This will go over and through it like that, goes around the back of the band, and then back out this side. And then we pull that tight. And again, we want to make sure that the white is underneath that band, because we want that to be hidden out of sight once we're all finished. So now I'm going to pull that tight, and a good way to make sure these stay nice and tight is I grab this knot right here with my fingers and I pull that side, so I kind of pull them away from each other. Then I do the same thing here. I grab that knot and I pull just a little bit, and you'll feel it snug up a little bit when you do that. So we've done 2 of these knots the exact same way. Now we're ready to incorporate the white stripe. So what I'll do is I'll give these 2 knots just a little gentle push. I'll try to push them up to that buckle as close as I can, and this is just where it really starts to make it look nicer than if you don't do that. So we're going to keep doing the same exact S's back and forth and back and forth. But now that I've got 2 of them over the top of the white, I want the white to start to come out. So when I make this S, it's actually going to go under the white stripe. So again, over and through that loop, and then back out that loop. So you'll notice when we pull it now, it actually ends up under the white instead of over it. And again, I want to make sure that that white is tucked in here. So I'll just pull that out a little bit and then tighten it up, so again that white's staying nice and protected under there. So again, a couple little pulls, a little snug. So now I've got that coming out. Now I want to do the opposite, but I want it to go over the band. So I do it this way. So I go over and under, and when I tighten this one up, it'll actually go over it again. So now it's kind of creating a bit of a stripe with that white. Again, making sure that under here that white is out of the way and you can't see it, because we really want to make sure that that is hidden. If you don't hide it, the piece will stick out and it'll rub against the skin, so we really want to make sure. Sometimes what I'll do, if I've got a little piece sticking out and there's no way to cover it, I'll grab the pliers over here, and just by grabbing just that white, don't grab the blue at all, but if you need to, you can get under the white, maybe like that, and you can just gently kind of pull it just a little bit. So I pulled a little bit out, it sucked it underneath, and then I want to pull it out on this side too, so that there's no slack in it. And then I pull, and now it's all nice and tight, and now that white is completely hidden. There's no edge sticking out of there. That's all you want. You don't want the edge. You'll still see a little bit, and that's okay. So back to the front, now we're ready to just start trucking all the way down the band. So again, we went over last time, so we're going to go under, pull it tight, little snug, little snug. Now we go over. So anytime we make the S going this way, we're going on the top of the white. Anytime we make the S this way, we'll be going under, and you'll start to get the feel for that. So again, over and out this back side. And then you'll also want to just kind of keep the stripe straight a little bit. It'll tend to want to push one way or the other because of the way you're pulling the knot. So now we're going under and back out the back side. And this is the part there, once you get comfortable with it, you'll be able to really move through this pretty quickly. So for the sake of demonstration, I'll keep doing it a little slow. Over the top, out the other side. And that's all you do, is just keep repeating that the whole time, all the way down. You'll know if you missed the stripe by accident or if you did it wrong, because you'll see either 2 blues in the same spot or you'll see too much white sticking through. So then you can just undo one wrap and retie it if you need to. So again, underneath, going around and through. So since you have this on video and you can go back to the original way, I'm going to show you a little bit of a way that might make it faster. Sometimes making the S can be a little confusing. Is if you actually just put this whole piece over here like this, then all you have to do is just go over it and around. And that's kind of the way I start doing it as I get faster and faster with it. So instead of physically having to make this S, I'll just pull it over and just wrap it like this. So I'm doing the exact same thing, but I'm kind of alleviating that time of having to make that S every time. You can also, use your hands and you'll start to get figured out which way it's going to come in, which way it's going to come out, and you're able to do it a lot faster then. So you can see that once you get the rhythm down, you can really start moving a little faster, and the weave itself doesn't take that long. So we've still got a lot of slack in the white, which is okay. If it starts to bug you, you can pull this out of the way a little bit, make it a little bit tighter so then it's not so much. But it's nice having that slack because it will start to tighten up on you as you get further and further along. And I'm also going to actually just push this out a little bit so I've got a little more tension on it, and that also helps. So when you don't have any slack in the bracelet, the band. So again, as you start going, you'll see how that white stripe goes every other. And then you know that you're doing it in the right order and that you're not skipping anything. So this continues the same until you get to the very end. The very end we change up just a little bit, and again it's more for cosmetic reasons, so it looks nice and it's a clean finish at the end. You'll always end up with a little bit of extra cord, which is good. You want that. You always want a little extra instead of not enough. Because if you do run out and don't have enough, there's no way you can go back and fix it without undoing the entire band. So we're getting kind of close to the end here, so now we're going to do something just a little bit different. Because what we want to do is we want to get the end of this white stripe. We want to start tucking this piece into the band as well, so it's not hanging out. You'll also notice this is getting pretty tight. It's hard to kind of get my finger in there now. So as I start going underneath, sometimes I'll grab the pliers to use it for just the last two, because in order to really keep it nice and tight, you want it to stay tight, but sometimes you need a little help from the pliers. So like right here, here's where, again, we normally would make the S, but we actually end up pulling this cord all the way through and putting this over it. So here's where I'll do it a little different. It won't look like the S, but it is the same thing. I'll put the pliers in between the two, I'll grab it, pull it through, and then I can go over, and I've just done the same thing, I just didn't make the S. Now here I'm going to tuck this white piece in on the back side of it, so it's the same way you did it on the very top. You tucked it in, but we're doing it down at the bottom now. So as I pull this one tight, and I want to make sure it stays in the back so it doesn't pull forward. You'll notice now as we flip it around, I've just tucked it underneath that first little knot, and I'm going to keep tucking it in under the knots from now on. So I go over, so now that white stripe has been tucked in by 2 knots, and I'm going to keep doing that, and that keeps it in there, keeps it from any chance of getting pulled out. I'm going to pull that straight through because there's too much to get my fingers in there now. One more over the top here. So if you remember at the very top, I did 2 knots up here before I incorporated the stripe. So I like to start it with 2 and I like to end it with 2. So I've done 1, I'm going to do 1 more, and it's going to put me right about the end. So I always start it and finish it with 2. That keeps the stripe in there nice and tight, but it also keeps it looking the same from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to do 1 more last one without tucking it under the stripe. So this is the very last one, and so the only thing you do differently is you'll notice this is where the finish point is here, because it comes to the bottom of the bracelet. This one comes to the top of the bracelet. I want them both to go to the bottom. So what we do here is I'm going to loosen it up just a little bit so you can see, is this piece of cord is going to follow right along this one and actually go down there, and that's how it's going to finish, is like that. Now the trick to making sure you do it tight is the same as you do the other knots. I'm going to do that from the beginning, but I'm going to make sure I get it nice and tight. So I'm going to do my last one like that. I'm going to put this piece in right there, and I like to run it along the inside edge. If I run along that outside edge, it ends up crisscrossing. So I want to make sure I take that spot right there. But before I tighten this one, I'm going to tighten these 2, which these are the same 2 that I've tightened all the way up and down. So I leave this one just kind of hang there. So tighten these 2, again, pull it apart from each other like this, a little pinch, a little pinch. Now it's really, really tight in there. And this one actually takes a little bit of resistance, but as I pull that through there, and I really pull it, now I've made that really tight, and that's how we finish it. So on the back side, you'll end up with a little tail here, and I'll show you how we get rid of that. And then you've got 2 tails here, and I'll show you how we get rid of that. But the band itself is actually done now.